In addition to that, we have significant increase in number of tropical storms recently, a lot more than in the past. My name is Shay Bahramirad, and I'm the IEEE PES President-elect and Senior Vice President of Engineering, Capital Program, and Asset Management. My job is to rebuild the electric power system in Puerto Rico, which is the largest settlement in the history of United States Department of Homeland Security in energy sector. I'm excited to be here because of the, see if I can move this, because of the significance of climate change requires us to all think holistically about the best approaches to both about the mitigation and adaptation to climate change. It also requires us a conversation that is both global as well as local. And this is what PES does so well. Each portion of the grid requires being planned and operated in a slightly different way. But there is also a larger global discussion that brings innovations from one region to the other. The first step is to responding to climate change is to make it possible for to integrate the clean energy technologies, including renewable generation, electric vehicle, and large scale generation, clean generation. Though generation and EV get a lot of press, it is up to the power grid to integrate them. The challenge is that these technologies pose technical issues that the grid must respond to, including reduced inertia associated with IBRs and the greater intermittency. Standards like 1547 and advanced grid capabilities help us to manage these issues. We need to integrate these new technologies in an environment that is increasingly challenging. In Puerto Rico, where I live, we deal with hurricanes, as I said, that are becoming more frequent and damaging with the acceleration of climate change. Over a large percentage of our substations are in a 10-year flood zone that they require either elevation or relocation to a different place, and living in an island, it makes it way more. The other aspect of an island is the issue associated with frequency control, and the fact that when clouds come and go, because of the residential solar, the frequency starts oscillating. And these are all the problems that we have to deal with as a result of climate crisis. All of these require us thinking more seriously about resiliency. The distinction between reliability and resiliency has always been less clear than engineers might like. Both require attention. Investments that focus more on reliability may have less value on resiliency. For example, reclosers or distribution pole replacements, they improve reliability. Though traditionally utilities have focused on reliability as opposed to resiliency, and the increased frequency of disruptive events is blurring that distinction. One thing I can share with you is that we are developing scenario planning for resiliency improvement for transmission lines 230 kV and 115 kV lines in Puerto Rico to make smarter decisions associated with improving resiliency and designing a system, overhead system that withstand 160 miles per hour. Responding to resiliency requires thinking differently about grid investment strategy that includes a different sense of time, including realizing that the benefit of the investment may take longer to realize. For example, as I stated, we are designing the overhead system or the poles to withstand 160 miles per hour that might not prove their worth for few years until truly a devastating hurricane hits. But a very good example of it is in Florida. Florida, geographically in a same climate that we are in Puerto Rico, and they experience number of hurricanes and wind in the region. They have made significant investments in transmission line, and in the past two hurricanes, including Hurricane Ian, their transmission line, 90% of it, they stood for the event that they experienced. The PES and the industry works very hard to develop metrics that makes it possible to think through these complexities in a very rigorous way. The industry has yet to fully align on many of these metrics, but there is a growing awareness of the need for some metrics that would help us think about resiliency like we do reliability. TR83 responses represents one key building block in us as a society and as an industry aligning on approaching moving forward. IEEE PES took the action to develop a number of white papers that you can find them in IEEE PES Resource Center. In the Resource Center, you can look into the two aspects that the white paper introduces. One is that non-storm gray sky day resiliency that focuses on robustness and the ability to withstand most weather events, and the total number of gray sky days in a year with no more than the threshold of interruptions. The threshold of interruption mainly gets developed in accordance with where the regionally that utility is located and the number of customers it serves. As you can see here, some of customers without power for more than 12 hours divided by sustained customer interruptions plus avoided customer interruptions. The second thing I would share with you is that the DOE performance-based metrics. Two parts to it. One is multi-criteria decision-making analysis, which basically surveys data and analyzes it with weighted factors, and then it calculates resiliency index that occurs for 1,200 attributes grounded in 350 different categories. And responding to these challenges requires developing fundamental technologies, but it requires us, more importantly, think about quantitatively and qualitatively about resilience evaluation. Engineers in my team, they think strictly through quantitative and most likely a checklist and evaluating the holistic capability that can be critical to make relevant decisions in a technical rooted matter. Just to give you an idea, the aspects for considerations are energy infrastructure, information system, and business structures. To think through capabilities, it starts about preparedness, mitigation, how to reduce the number of outages or avoid them, responses, and then recovery. And the evaluation that includes checklists and questionnaire, metrics of scoring, and combining different aspects of resilience. The value of these technologies is most apparent when we think of their impact, not just on the grid, but on related sectors like the water industry. The Puerto Rico, one of the reasons we are working to develop the first microgrid network that leverages undersea cable is because of its ability to support increased renewable generation, to mitigate climate change, and provides greater adaptiveness to disruptive events. In Vieques and Culebra, following Maria, it took 9 months for them to regain power, which affected not just the power system, but related infrastructure as well as hospitals and water system. And deploying these capabilities in a larger scale require aligning on codes and standards. That's something that IEEE PES performs it really well, which help make it easier to deploy advanced capabilities like grid forming inverter to provide black start capabilities with energy storage. It also makes it easier to integrate batteries with grid control capabilities, as well as ADMS and DERMS. This is the framework that we have utilized in Puerto Rico to tackle different things, from weatherizing parts of the system, installing an energy management system, replacing aging infrastructure, looking into creating system to keep track of asset age and health, and scoring them and going after the worst first, developing sensors and intelligence systems, and creating situational awareness to the extent that we can make decisions properly and develop scenario-based frequency load shed criteria. The few things that in my mind it is quite important for industry to take the time to develop that. One is that coordinated resources. More than any time in history, it is important to coordinate T&D planning and investment prioritization. This industry is becoming more and more capital intensive, and the affordability of the power system, it requires us to have a holistic, data-driven T&D and generation resource planning and make decisions about investments. The second one is risk and probability-based cost benefit tools. As I shared with you, in Puerto Rico, we are developing a probabilistic scenario-based planning to improve resiliency of transmission line. The other thing is during black sky emergency communication and coordination between different systems and different infrastructures, and then utilizing advanced analytics and data mining and machine learning to collect all that information from the field and to help the control center to make the most proper decision for operation of the system. We are installing sensors that they provide data way more than phasor measurement units. And when an event happens, that gives us an idea, and they communicate over cellular phone it helps us to have an idea of where the fault has happened and reduces the restoration time by 50% at times. I would conclude my talk with sharing with you that while resiliency and sustainability can feel like separate goals and often are, many of the same capabilities that they can help both. Technologies like microgrids can help us integrate sustainable technologies while they improve local resiliency. And a truly modern grid can and must do both. And we can do this together. The most important part of this journey is that nobody can do this alone, not in any region and not in any utility. It requires industry and academia participation, as well as sharing best practices across the globe, so to ensure that we can take advantage of the best practices to adapt and mitigate the impact of climate change. Thank you again for having me today, and I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shay, for a very brief but very informative initial thoughts. I like the resilience metric which you have shown and corresponding different issues that you raised. So let us, I also now request our another speaker, Bajaj sir and Shay. So we'll be having a few question answers. So quickly, I mean, I hope that will clarify different issues. The first thing what I would like to ask about, yes, we are all facing the climate change problems, but if I would like to ask what is the most threatening impact of climate change? Because you know, awareness is also important among the people. Social innovations, social behavior are also important. In that case, the question is, what's the most threatening impact of climate change, especially considering the regional aspect? So maybe I can go first to Bajaj sir for a quick response.
Thank you, Dr. Fateh. Uh, I think as far as the climate crisis is concerned, uh, any event happening in one part of the world impacts more or less everywhere. So, uh, but what is most threatening is, of course, the global warming itself. It's the global warming which melts the glaciers. It is the global warming which is raising the sea levels. It is global warming which is causing high temperatures, uh, average global temperatures, causing forest fires, heat waves, and impacting every human being. And of course, global warming or all this is due to burning of the fossil fuels, which produce enormous amount of greenhouse gas emissions. And I think this is the impacting the most. Thank you.
Thank you. It's yeah, yeah, really, I truly agree. Global warming is the root cause, which is, I mean, in which is creating many other effects. Let's go to Dr. Shay for your comments for the most threatening impact.
Climate change affects us in different ways, Dr. Sheikh. Even in Region 10, we have areas like Pakistan that are dealing with increased heat waves, which require more air conditioning and load, but also like Bangladesh, which deal with both heat waves and flooding. In Puerto Rico, that change in we are experiencing the same issues that exist in Region 10. And it makes not only the maintaining the power grid harder, but also our employees have to work in an environment that the temperature is 48 degrees with 100% humidity. So the health and safety of the people that they work in the grid is a significant issue. The last thing I would say is that this impacts disproportionately people from lower socioeconomical areas in any region more the less. So the inequity aspect of the climate change that is felt by lower socioeconomical part of the society, I would say, is the most threatening impact of climate change. And last thing I would say is that to mitigate and adapt to it, it requires significant investment. And that's for the cities and the people to bear that cost. So the cost of electricity becomes more and more unaffordable. That's something that is for us to watch for and work together.
Yes, I truly agree. And as you have already mentioned about the word mitigation, uh, so why don't I go for the next question to you first? So yes, we know there are different mitigation plans proposed by different group. So if you have to prioritize these mitigation steps, so which are the most important mitigation steps to be taken immediately? I mean, can we unifiedly say something, or you feel for region 10 something different, as you mentioned some of the countries in the region 10, or region 9 is different? So what are the most important mitigation steps from your perspective?
Thank you for that great question, Dr. Sheikh. In a place like Puerto Rico and many parts of Region 10, it's making it easier to integrate renewable generation like solar in a safe and reliable way. We can't give up safety and reliability. However, to get more solar, we have to do both. In Puerto Rico, we provide hosting capacity map to our customers. So we provide a signal to market where are the areas that solar in the residential and distribution system can get connected faster. It's a stochastic model behind the scene that developed that map. In addition to that, we have been working with regulator to put together a plan where are the areas in the transmission line that large scale solar is not going to require a significant upgrade, because it introduces additional problem because of the state of the market and wars around the world. The transformer that we used to buy, and it would take a year and a half to get that transformer, now it takes 3.5 years. So the delay in the delivery of the market and supply chain, another thing for consideration. But in my mind, the integration of renewable, both in the distribution system for residential area as well as larger scale, is the fastest way to mitigate from climate change.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, integration of renewables is important, but different countries need their own special initiatives, especially in Region 10. Not all are very proactive in this particular case. I think Bajaj sir can add more. So the question is to you, from your perspective, what are the most important mitigation steps? Bajaj sir.
Thank you, Dr. Fateh, for that very good question. Uh, as you said, each region will have its own solutions. In region 10, we are trying to harness the vast hydro potential that the region has and cooperate with each other. Like I said earlier, both Nepal and Bhutan have vast potential. India too has about 150,000 megawatts of hydro potential and nearly 90,000 megawatts of pump storage schemes potential. So in this region, we are trying to harness this potential expeditiously and on priority basis, and also establish a transnational grid in the South Asian region so that we can utilize the hydro resource-based power uh, from neighboring countries. And this is very promising, and it's going to help us. The solar potential of India, we are planning for about 500,000 megawatts of solar power generation. And Sri Lanka has a lot of wind power potential. So all this, I think we are concentrating on these areas, and of course, establishment of the uh, transnational grid. Though I'm not directly involved in this project of One Sun, One World, One Grid. I think there are some questions about its progress. I think I can revert to you after checking with the people who are associated with this. I'm not directly associated, so I will revert on that question from Dr. Lance Fung. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I mean, yes, different countries, they have, I mean, high potential for certain renewables, as you mentioned, hydro, or in some cases, solar. So integrating renewables, it's a very, I agree, both of you also agreed. But I mean, I mean, what is the progress, if I ask? This type of initiative? Yes, what you said, we can discuss later, but in your mind, is there any progress where we can think not only a country with its border, countrywide integrated these type of renewables? Any examples, like, you know?
Yeah, I can share with you. So in the past 2 years, we have connected 64,000 customers, residential customers with solar rooftop to the system. That is more than the past decade in Puerto Rico. It's significant. It puts Puerto Rico in seventh in the nation, in the United States and North America per capita. So it's like one of the examples that I can share with you, a huge focus around interconnection of rooftop solar that represents approximately 396 megawatt of solar. The other example that I can share with you is in the state of Illinois, there is a number of statutes or the laws that they would encourage and provide financial benefits for developers to build a community solar. These are up to 2 megawatt of solar farms that people can go and purchase subscriptions. So if I live in a home that is not strong enough structurally to put the solar on top of it, I can go and purchase subscription. Or for people that they live in big buildings, so or they don't have the capital to go and purchase equipment. In my mind, it's a very good example of enabling renewable energy in the market in an equitable way that everybody can access this, not only people that they have the money to install solar in their roofs.
Yeah, that's a very good example. Like, yeah, in an equitable way. So you are empowering, like you are giving an opportunity to, I mean, who doesn't have that much capacity can easily adopt it. Yeah, that's a very good example from Illinois. And also, it's a huge 64,000. Oh, a great initiative. Okay, so I mean, Shay, you have talked a lot about resilience. That that is really, I mean, you are an expert in that area. So, but do you think spatial capacity building or training, and in some cases, system modifications or necessary arrangements are required to achieve climate resilience? Because you said two types. One, you strongly focus on those storm within 12 hours, the metric you said, and other non-storm things you have put together. But to have resilience, you see the flood or sometimes other issues may play a major role. So the question is, what's your suggestion or recommendation regarding spatial training or capacity building and necessary system modification and arrangement to achieve climate resilience?
What I can, so I have a team of 1,860 people of engineers and project managers. And if you ask me what keeps me up at night, I would tell you talent and capacity. it's not only about having engineers, but it's about reskilling engineers and teaching the analytics and methods and optimization to be able to do their job better. I have over 300 openings only in my team in the next 6 months, and it's very, very hard to find the right engineers. What I can tell you is that the encouraging the younger generation to go into STEM and engineering, and not only electric power system, but data analytics, computer science, civil engineering, that they have to deal with where to put the structure on top of a mountain to withstand 160 miles per hour. These are all the elements of it, or how to ground a transformer, and how to do the civil work and the project managers. It's a lot of work. In addition to that, we have a group of people that they worked in coal and mining, that they need to get reskilled and be relevant to green energy technology. So the reskilling the talent is another thing. One quick example I should also give you is that we have been working very closely with high schools in Puerto Rico, and the recent project that we had was for the female engineers, 14 female engineers working with 45 high school girls to build an electric car and race it. These are the examples of hands-on experiences. And by the way, we utilized IEEE engineering U that provides the framework of how to engage with high schoolers. So these are of different aspects and attributes of capacity building. Now you went to the system, which is way more complicated. We are not from a gray sky day. We are looking into substations, how to change the design and make it a robust. Our legacy design, for example, is straight bus, and in 230 kV line, we are looking into breaker and a half. In a medium voltage side, we've been looking into double ring bus to come up with a design that provides N-1 during both reliability and resiliency standpoint. I shared with you that 20% of our substations are in a 10-year flood zone. So we are elevating some of them and relocating some of them. So these are a couple of initiatives that I can share with you that play into both reliability as well as the resiliency at the same time.
Yes, that's great, but that's a good news, I should say. For you, maybe it's a tension. 300 engineers you need within half a year. So good news for the engineers who are graduating, but for you, maybe it's a tension. But the same thing, I think Bajaj sir has faced a lot because he has been in this area for many, many, many years. So to achieve resilience, I mean, you have also faced many failure in the grid. So I think you can share your thoughts about what should we do to get the capacity building or training for human resource perspective, as well as the modification or arrangement for a grid or the overall system. Bajaj sir, yes.
Uh, yes, I think at the school or college level, I think the first step needs to be making it's the awareness about the environment, awareness about the uh, high efficiency requirements, awareness about the problems that we are facing in the integration, awareness uh, about the variable load operations, which were not heard of. For example, the thermal power stations, we were all running on base load. And the idea was to have the maximum plant load factors. Right now, the idea is how to use these, say, thermal units as on variable load operations so that they can respond to the uh,
Crisis.
the intermittency of the renewables, and that happens so often. And therefore, quick action, even our operators in the operation rooms, uh, they have to now face very exciting
We cannot hear you, sir. Bajaj sir, you are muted or we cannot hear you. Uh, Maybe in the meantime, Bajaj sir, can you listen to us? Uh, he is there, but okay, let's proceed. So yes, we understand your main concern. So the readiness of the whole system and awareness about those technologies so that immediately response can be taken our participants. We have receiving a lot of good questions, so I appreciate if you have more questions. So we'll be going to the question answer round very soon. So in the meantime, I think we can have another round of question. So yes, mitigation is there. And if we consider the long-term consequences, uh, so Dr. Shay, you can may answer. If we consider the long-term consequences, do you think we should spend more effort on climate adaptation?
You know, this is the million-dollar question, Dr. Sheikh, and it's extremely difficult because at the end of the day, it's about where do you put your money, and there's not an unlimited resources, and that's a question that I get quite a lot from our regulators. But it's really not one or the other. A truly modern grid must be able to do both. Um, and we can. The same sensor that provides observability make it easier to mitigate and adapt to climate change. What we are trying to do is to provide the right balance between the mitigation and adaptation. We enable renewable energy, as you heard about the numbers that I provided, and working very closely to do interconnection study for large scale, at the same time rebuilding the overhead system in a way that would stand 160 miles per hour. At the end of the day, we need to make hard choices, such as the fact that we are not able to do the same in our laterals. We have to start from the mainland, main lines, and stop because of the limitation of the resources. The other example I would tell you is that we are not able to and cannot afford to make all transmission line underground. So what we have done is to create a prioritization in a way that any makes the infrastructure withstand hurricane and avoid not outages but blackouts, because as you know, we are an electrical island system, and any disruption is going to cause us to have a system-wide blackout. So it's a very hard question, and depending on the geographical area, and optimization is needed to provide one or the other. And then at the same time, there are technologies that they provide, they participate both in or contribute both to adaptation and mitigation, such as microgrid and installation of sensors.
Yes, I fully agree. We have to consider both. By the way, Sanjay sir, or I cannot see Bajaj sir in the panelist list now.
Yes, he is not there, but I will just ring him up. I will just ring him up.
Thank you, Sanjay sir. Yeah. So, I mean, yes, we have good discussions. In the meantime, as Bajaj sir is not there, we have been receiving a lot of good questions. Some of the questions from our valuable participants today, we can have a look to those questions. Let's see. I mean, our Region 10 Director Lance Fang. I mean, he is. I told him that you are an expert, and he said, no, I am not an expert in this area. But you see, he has the first comment questions in the chat. So, I mean, I don't know, Professor Lance Fang, if you are here, you can ask your question instead of I am reading. So you ask about the progress, the plan by 2030. So Professor Lance Fang, will you be asking your questions?
Yeah, okay, thank you, Professor Sveta. I believe
Yes.
just now Dr. Benja has mentioned already, we really need to follow up. I'm just getting those data regarding the project, and I look at those data talking about the expected completion day is 2030, which is not too far away. And also we're talking about 2,600 gigawatt. So my question is, well, is this sufficient? So that was a first question. But obviously, well, we need some further information or investigation on that part. My second question actually is also regarding the use of the solar panel, because I'm speaking from Australia point of view that actually we are leading the world in terms of the installation of the rooftop solar panels. I myself have a 5 kilowatt on my rooftop. But on the other hand, we still see that the energy costs still keep on rising, well, because of all the different factors. And then now, well, it has been a move going on to the storage battery being installed in the house. In particular, well, in view that the government is going to phase out, well, the fossil fuel vehicles. So we need to all using the EV in time to come. So people beginning to ask it, okay, if that is the case, well, if I can install, well, my own storage, I can have my own solar generation, well, why should I still keep on stay on the grid? So they can really, well, opt to off the grid. In that case, well, you create a bigger problem for the utilities company because they are not really receiving sufficient revenue to maintain the system, to maintain the transmission, and then also the costs getting higher and higher. So you are going to create, well, apparently going to be a separated, segregated the society within the energy have and have not, just because it's so costly for those that cannot afford to install the system. So I'm not too sure that is he going to be looking at some kind of a social implication on this one. So that has been one of my questions. Thank you.
Dr. Shay,
Dr. Bajaj has joined. Dr. Bajaj has joined. You can see.
okay, yes, I can see. So Dr. Shay, if you shed some light, Professor Lance has two different questions. One about the progress, progress of some planning, OSOWOG planning to complete 2030. Will it be on track for the completion as planned? And the second question was the estimated capacity is 2,600 gigawatt. Will it be sufficient in view of the increasing use of electrical energy, such as electric vehicles and termination of traditional fossil fuel? That was the first question.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I have the latest status of the OSOWOG, and for everybody else that they don't know about that's the initiative that aims to connect different regional grid through a common grid that will be used to transfer renewable power. So I think I'm not the best person to answer that question, to be quite frank with you. I've seen some of the presentations at the PES events, but that's the extent of it. And the second one related to the 2600 gigawatt, I think Mr. Bajaj was commenting on it, so I would defer to him.
Bajaj sir, I mean, the question Professor Lance Fang was asking about one sun, one world, one grid. I mean, as you said, you will be sharing more lights on later part. So he was asking like estimated capacity 2,600 gigawatt, whether it will be sufficient in view of the increasing use of, I mean, EV and termination of traditional fuel at that time, 2030. I mean, maybe we cannot listen to you, Bajaj sir. Your microphone, maybe you have to do some adjustment for your microphone, sir. Sanjay, I mean, maybe you have to call him. Bajaj sir, we cannot listen to you. So in the meantime, maybe we can move forward because we have so many questions in the chat box. So some of the questions I can read because I just have copied them quickly. So they were coming very fast. Yeah, another question from Lance Fang. Lance Fang was about the rooftop solar installation. So that's an interesting question. So whether if you have any comment about the rooftop solar installation, however, the cost of energy is still increasing and people are now considering installation of battery and even prepare to go off grid. This will create a major problem for the utility companies as their revenue will decrease and making cost of energy even higher. It becomes a social problem as those who can afford the system are not going to pay, while those who can't afford the installation will need to pay higher energy cost. This will become an energy have or energy have not the society, any problem that will create? That was his concern.
It's a very good question, Professor Lance and Dr. Sheikh. The equity in energy sector is becoming more and more complicated. We different parts of the country in the United States, they provide incentives for customers to install solar and battery together. In Puerto Rico, in fact, the federal government provides like a significant amount of investment opportunity. They are going to, in Department of Energy, announce $1 billion investment in Puerto Rico for residential homes to go and apply for solar and battery. They also pay for the retrofit of the roof, but that doesn't mean that they go in a off grid. However, we haven't seen much of that, to be honest with you. They all utilize the power grid as a slack bus or for the backup for the time that it is not the energy is not there. So not only it's not about the revenue. The net metering adds additional complexity to it because when there's an excess power, they want to sell it like the customers want to sell it back to the grid and get paid for it, although the utilities should pay for T&D cost and the maintenance and the upgrade. This is something that different regulatory entities in the US, they are looking into it to make the problem equitable. For instance, in Illinois, they decoupled the utility. So the utility doesn't basically make money, and they are on the same side as customers related to energy efficiency. So that just helps for utilities to promote more energy efficiency and energy efficient technologies.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm just reading Lance Fang's another comment. I mean, it's true. Shay has mentioned, and he echoed the same thing about the technical expertise, lack of technical expertise. So Professor Lang's comment was interesting to hear the issue of lack of talents around the world, as I just attended a meeting with semiconductor industry in Malaysia, and all delegates were telling how hard to recruit and retain talents. So it's a compliment from Shay's perception or real life experience, I should say. Okay, so we can move forward to another participant's question. So Angar Devai, it's to Shay. The question is, I'm wondering what the best solution for climate change? It's the tools itself or the human perspective, and how it's relate with your metric. So the question is, what's the best solution for the climate change? The tools or the human perspective, and how it's relate with your metric? Angar, do I ask the question?
A combination of all of the above. It's a combination of technology as well as the people, the human choices. When we develop resiliency metrics, there is a component related to community resilience. So that goes back to what do we do in communities to improve the knowledge and education for people to make day-to-day choices better to contribute to that. At the same time, developing tools. For instance, like years ago, when I worked in Illinois in the electric utility, we were installing fiber in our microgrid footprint that connected the police headquarters and a hospital and grocery store, number of these critical infrastructure in a resilient way. But then the fiber, it provided the opportunity to put the kiosk in the populated areas, so we can take advantage of it and educate consumers when they're waiting for a bus to pick them up. So the infrastructure and the technology introduces an opportunity to educate and improve the community resilience and the knowledge and the human choices. This is something that requires a holistic, hands-on contribution in order to mitigate and adapt to this new normal that we are dealing with.
Thank you. In a similar lineup, Suva Bhattacharya asked to you, Shay, the question is, the semiconductors used in making solar panel are limited. Any solution to that?
Oh, yes. So here's the thing. When we develop our business cases and our approach to decide about technology, we only look at the impact today. So the solar panels, they reduce the need for carbon, reduce the carbon footprint and the need for generation that is not clean. However, what we don't look at is from end to end. The mining of those semiconductors, not necessarily they are an ethical industry. Or when you go at the end of the spectrum, the recycling of solar panel after 25 years, again, it's an issue. Now you touched on semiconductor, and I go beyond that. The power electronics associated with these systems, there's also shortage of that in industry. So it's a end-to-end problem that needs to be looked at, and making sure that we have a plan to tackle them. I shared with you the transformer, the power transformer delivery is like 2.5 years, 3 years right now. The same with distribution transformer, the same problem that exists in semiconductor and solar sector.
Thank you. So, Prakash Lahana, Prakash ji is very active in this area, climate change, and he is also in our team in the Region 10 ad hoc on climate change. His question to both of you: what can be done to encourage energy efficient buildings, homes, and how can corporations can contribute to the fight against climate change? So the question is about energy efficient homes and buildings, how the corporate side can contribute in this perspective. Maybe I can go to Bajaj sir first, the energy efficient buildings, homes, and the corporate's effort. Sir, sound is still a problem. Your sound is not coming out. Maybe you have to. So we cannot hear you. Thank you, Prakash ji, for joining and asking a very good question. So, Sanjay sir, yeah. So, Shay, if you share about the energy efficient building management, yes.
So in the US, there are different states, or the federal government provides incentive for weatherizing buildings, both for electricity and water. For example, in Georgia, there are a significant increase in those incentives provided to people to participate in and make their homes and buildings energy efficient. So that's like one of the examples. The other thing is that the retrofit of fridges and refrigerators and turn them into an energy efficient, or the other thing that United Nations put a lot of effort is to cooking industry and make them energy
automatically
efficient.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yes, we can hear now.
Can you hear? Am I audible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, we
Dr.
can hear now. Yes, yes, we can hear you. We can hear you. Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Great. So as far as the buildings are concerned in India, we have a Bureau of Energy Efficiency who have brought out a national building code, and all industrial and corporate buildings and others, they are governed by the code, and therefore energy efficiency there is ensured. I'm sorry for this, there's some problem in the audio system. I can hear you. I hope you are also able to hear me now. Again,
No, yes, sir, we can hear you clearly. Yeah, we can hear you. Your voice is clear to us.
Acha. This is asking.
Okay, so thank you. Yeah, this is a good initiative. Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
and
as
we
far
can.
as
Yes,
far as
we can have. Yeah, carry on. Yes.
Yes, please. Dr. Fateh, you can continue. I'm sorry for interrupting you.
So another good question. I mean, we have a lot of questions. We have to run fast. Where are now on our green initiatives in a global scale? from Gilbert Novellero. Gilbert Novellero, thank you for the question. Where are we now on our green initiatives in a global scale?
Well, you know, we also have an international solar alliance, which has more than 100 participants. And I think you can imagine consensus reaching amongst people becoming difficult, and the progress is slow. That is my feedback. And there is nothing in the public domain that you know, I know of. So, but I can, and even One Sun, One World, One Grid project is also ground reality is that it is under the planning and discussions and designing stage. And Dr. Lance Fong's question about the regional transferability of renewable power, it's not still in the public domain. But of course, you know, the idea is that where renewable power is available, and if there is diversity and it's not in use, say in India, then at that time, if it is needed somewhere else and how much is needed there, it is transferred there. So the grid has to be accordingly designed for that, for power by displacement, depending upon the need, demand at that particular time, you know, as it's a normal design for the, you know, grid.
Thank
And
you, sir.
as far as India renewable use is concerned, luckily in India, we have the entire country is on one frequency. The entire nation is connected. It has an inter-regional transferability of about 116,000 megawatts, which is adequate enough to use renewable powers. You know, our country is about 3,000 kilometers in width. So when in the east, in the early morning, sun shines, say at 4 o'clock or 5 a.m., there is a lot of diversity between the east and western part of the country. And we can use that power in the eastern region when sun is shining early morning and it is not needed there, it is transferred to other regions. So we have
Thank you, sir.
lot of flexibility in that.
Exactly. So thank you for your insight. So we are almost at the end of our event, but I should read all those good questions. Our respected panelists, if you have a very quick answer, 30 seconds, you can give the answers to them. They're very interesting. One specific question to Shay, it was like regarding the FMCDM method for grouping 1200 attributes. Is that for choosing between renewable energy and fossil fuel, or what?
No,
It's very
no,
specific. Yeah.
no, actually it's not. It's about if you have an option to build the line underground or overhead, which one you would choose. Or if you want to build a substation, a breaker and a half versus a straight bus, which one would you choose? There's a significant cost between the two approaches, and the model is going to assess which one is provides more value to consumers considering resiliency.
Okay, thank you. Another question, it's long but interesting. As the Asian countries are suffering for severe climate change effects, but some of them are less contributors to this climate change, but they are suffering the most. As a scientist and researchers, we propose solutions to mitigate these problems, but how can the steps be implemented by governments? What do you suggest being more practical? To Shay specifically, is there any plan you have to give a training awareness to developing countries which are lacking in these perspective or technical skill? It's question from Ehtesham Nasir.
I very much appreciate the question. I was born and raised in Iran, and I grew up in Iran, and I went to school in Iran, and I live in Puerto Rico. So the question that you ask is very close to my heart. I can share that with you. In PES, we have we have started work in as part of industry task force and executive advisory committee, and the intention is to provide support to policymakers and decision makers globally so they can be informed about what's going on around the world. We have provided testimonies and participated in a number of government initiatives, including like in European Union, in United Nations, and the World Bank, and so forth. We continue to do that as a focus in PES.
Thank you. So that was a good question, I understand. And the last question regarding the FMCDM method, it was asked by Indra Kurniwan. So I forgot to mention name. And I think I should just read rest of the questions. The time is very short to appreciate the participants.
I
Aniket?
suggest, Dr. Fatah, I suggest all
Yes.
these questions may be mailed to speakers, and even if we are not able to tackle them right now because of the time, we can definitely revert back and reply. That's
Sure.
Yeah,
my suggestion.
I'm
Yeah,
happy to
sure.
commit to that as well.
Exactly. So Aniket raised a good question. What are the biggest challenges in transitioning to renewable energy? How can they be addressed? Additionally, what are some of the most effective actions individuals can take to address climate change and safeguard the environment for future generations? It's a very good concern, I should say. Transitioning to renewable energy, what are the biggest challenge? The next question, this is from Aniket Shenoy. Thank you for the nice question. Orko Roy asked the question, what can be some of the steps to implement energy efficient solutions in the developing and densely populated subcontinent countries, as the demographies are very, greatly different? So the question is, some steps implementing energy efficient solutions in these densely populated countries. And Khansa Tariq, the question is, every year we experience floods and droughts due to climate change and excessive resource consumption. What measures are there in terms of managing resource consumption, and technological measures like optimal reservoir management has been taken, and any advancements? Jessica Baranwell, the question is, will the remedies to climate change be worse than the disease? Will it drive more people into poverty with higher costs? Thank you all for excellent and intuitive questions. For the shortage of time, we may not address all these questions. We are almost at the end of this session, only 5 minutes remaining. So at this moment, so I would like to request Professor Jennifer de la Cruz. Jennifer de la Cruz. She is the committee chair of the students activity of IEEE Region 10, and tremendously she has been supporting for this particular event. A lot of people are behind. She's one of them. Professor Jennifer, if you are here, she's a PhD in ECE, and MS in from Dolasal University, and now she is in Mapua University. She is a research faculty, both undergrad, graduate studies at Mapua University, Philippines. Has presented, published more than 180 research papers in the field of electronics computer engineering. She is an active volunteer and senior member of IEEE, and currently the Region 10 Chair for Student Activity Committee. Professor Jennifer, for your closing remark.
Dr. Fatah, for that very kind introduction. Good evening, everyone, especially to our dear panels, Dr. Shay and Mr. Bajaj, all the participants in and outside Region 10, and the vibrant organizers of R10 Talk webinar series. It was an evening of interactive and insightful session about climate change and how we can individually contribute in mitigating and adapting to this global issue. So we thank you, dear panels, for sharing your amazing roles, your wonderful initiatives, and we look forward to its relevant impact amidst the various challenges. Your efforts are in fact ultimately aligned in IEEE vision and mission in collaborating globally to mitigate this phenomenon. It was incredibly an interesting discussion. It is like as early as now, we can gauge our preparedness and our resilience. And personally, I really had a lot of loads of takeaway. And with that, on behalf of R10 and our R10 Director, Prof. Lance, and R10 Talk team, we are grateful to Dr. Shay and Mr. Bajaj. Your time and effort are much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we also would like to thank,
yes,
of course, we would like to thank our moderator for tonight, Dr. Sheikh Fatah, our chair and Region 10 Ad Hoc Committee on Climate Change. Thank you very much for hosting and moderating this evening session for our 9th R10 Talk. Next slide, please. And of course, for us to deliver more relevant and emerging topics in the future, please do not hesitate to give us feedback and use this QR code. Thank you. For next slide, please. And of course, R10 Talk is a collaboration of the entire team of R10, headed by Dr. Zia, and the different R10 committees, Industry Relations, Professional Activities Committee, Young Professionals, Humanitarian Technology Committee, Women in Engineering, Student Activities Committee, and IEEE Life member. Next slide, please. And please stay tuned to our next webinar, our 10th webinar, Reliability and Safety Challenges for the AI Hardware to Enable the Future Metaverse by Dr. Cecilia Metra. This will be held next week, Saturday, August 5 p.m. Singapore time. And I would like to also let you know that you can connect with us with LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. And would like to take this opportunity to request the rest of the panel members and our those who are in the panels to take this opportunity to have photo op with our dear speakers. May you please turn on your camera. Please take off this slide.
Yeah, please.
Okay, I'll take the picture. 1, 2, 3. Emmy? Yeah, another one. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you. See you in our next R10 Talk.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Bye. Bye. Bye, sign us off.